Can we be real for 1 minute? Say how we feel for 1 minute.
First of all, for those of you that don't know, this is Lonnie and Kara. This is Kara. My name is Lonnie. Do you want to say hello to the people?
Hello, people.
Okay, so so it's been a long time since we've been on the platform doing this this kind of format. We've actually still been mentoring couples because that's kind of like something that we enjoy doing, that God has us assigned to in this season of our lives, which we counted as a privilege and an honor to walk beside couples who are running the marathon of marriage. And we are here today just to kind of just have an unscripted conversation. I know I got a few messages, not necessarily messages, actually people during conversation. A friend of mine I was just talking to the other day had mentioned that, hey man, y'all haven't had any videos in a while talking about relationship stuff. And so I said, we kind of been chilling and haven't even thought about doing it until here recently.
I feel like we've been living relationships. So, so it may not have been, I don't know, scripted or recorded or whatever. Life's been life, and marriage has been marriaging, and I don't know if that's the right word, but either way, we have been productive, but we haven't been able to be on the platform, just time and other priorities, I guess.
Right. And so I wanted to come and just really have a unscripted, no agenda, no point A, B, or C, no 5 steps to this, no seven ways to do that, no 3 ways to get out of this or 2 ways to get into that. Didn't want to do that. I just want to have a real authentic conversation, and we'll just see how this goes. Okay. I'll be honest with you. I don't like this setup. I'll be honest with you.
So what setup do you prefer?
Hold on. I am being a team player. Now, y'all have to forgive the dog. Santana just
gets in the mix.
So, but you suggested that we do it here.
Right.
And I didn't give you any pushback.
No.
So I am being accommodating.
Yeah. But
I just wanted to make that very clear. I feel restricted, and I don't really care too much for this setup, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. We are here. Just kind of give us an update on how you've been.
Yeah.
And how has, as you say, life been lifing for you?
Yeah. So I don't know when the last time we actually had a recorded video. It has been some time. But since then, I think we've had a couple trips in there. We've had a couple our kids are doing a lot of different things. So for those of you that are new to us, we've been married for a long time, almost 29 years, and we have 3 kids that are right there nestled in that adult space. Our youngest of the 3 is a junior in college at UT in Austin, Texas. And so we really have just been trying to be available to them as they are navigating some different things, as well as different things with just those that we are mentoring with. But I have to say, life has been lifing, is that marriage and life is not a marathon. It's like a journey. And so, gosh, whether that's been just watching my parents get older, that's been interesting. Watching us navigate in those spaces, trying to keep up with just the day-to-day grind of just work itself. And but I feel like I'm back in my creative space, which is kind of cool. And I say creative space is I'm writing another book. Just started doing that. So I've got a blueprint out there. I'm very skeleton. It takes me a little bit of time to get going, but I've figured out springtime is usually the time that I get the most creative. And so I'm just kind of leaning into that right now.
Well, that's good. Congratulations.
Thanks. That means that's going to be some work for you. He's ignoring, but truth be told, is I can't do any of the stuff that I get involved in without having a team, which he's basically the lead of the team. He is the team. So, you know, he's like, do what you need to do, and then I'll tap me in when it's time to come in. So,
well, that's good. That's good. Glad to hear that you are back in your creative space. That's good. Well, I want to kind of start a thought-provoking conversation. There's so many things, topics that I think about, but one of the topics that are actually kind of prevalent in my mind right now, I've been, reading, been watching different YouTube videos and listening to different people through social media.
he's going to do that all day long.
Well, it only bothers you. You have to learn to ignore things.
Distractions.
But you just literally got distracted and caused a distraction. I was just explaining something to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm learning to pause, inhale, exhale, and not let it irritate me. So, as I was saying, different topics that have been in the forefront as of late. One of the topics in particular is about finances and money, which is a touchy subject for a lot of people, a lot of couples. And like we mentioned earlier, we mentor a lot of couples, whether that's those who are married or those who are preparing to get married in the premarital space. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I'm finding to be prevalent is the fact that a lot of couples are not talking about finances prior to getting married.
Right.
And I won't say it's too late once you get married to kind of have that discussion, because it's never too late to have the discussion. Mm-hmm. But I think it should be done way sooner than getting married. There's a debate now on so many different platforms and different mediums about how do husbands feel when the wife makes more money, or how do women feel about being stay-at-home moms or not, or what's the term when you stay home and you take care of the house even if you don't have kids?
Just basically a stay-at-home mom manager of the house.
But if you don't have children, there are women who refuse to be a housewife. I guess that's the right term.
I don't know.
And it's a shame that I have to dance around it, because
I don't know what you're saying though.
What I'm saying is, if you are a woman and I told you, I don't want you to work, even though you have the skill set, you have the college background, the degrees, the certifications, but because of whether that's traditional values or because of my way of thinking or because I just don't want my wife to work, and I told you to stay at home and let me work and not.
So like a kept woman? I don't know.
Okay,
I don't really know what the term is.
Okay, regardless of what the term is,
yeah,
there is a lot of discussion being held about women who, A, make more money than their man, B, men who don't want their woman to work, or just the fact that finances in general have been one of the leading causes of divorce in marriage. Yeah. And so I kind of want to really just talk about that, and not necessarily being a financial advisor, because because I am not that.
And I'm not either.
I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I want to make that very clear.
Yep.
And I don't claim to know everything there is to know when it comes to finances and financial planning, investments. I have no license whatsoever to give that type of advice. So I won't do that. Yeah. But from a perspective of knowing the purpose and true meaning of what money and finances is and how to be good stewards over that, I think that's a place where we have learned through trial and error, through ups and downs, through experience, where we have learned to be better at. We have not perfected it, but we are, would you agree that we are better now at handling our finances than we were, especially in the beginning?
Yeah.
When we had very little to work with anyway.
I think, we're better in that space. I think one of the things you said is not specifically in the context of marriage, but finances, as you said, some people don't talk about it until they are married. And then they start going through the challenges or maybe no challenges regarding with finances. But I think it's interesting to unpack it, go before marriage is just in relationships, is couples that are dating and when finances are the center of their relationship. So what I mean by that is couples that are constantly dating and meaning that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And so part of that courting phase is using finances, whether that is you're overextending yourself, you're overindulging yourself, you're creating a space where there is almost like a expectation.
Okay.
And so I think finances, it starts early on. How is finances introduced into that relationship? And then how does it continue to evolve in that relationship? So whether you're dating, are you misusing your finances, right? Are you using them out of context? Are you using them to woo and to wow someone?
Okay.
Are you actually misrepresenting yourself in finances, right? So whether you are saying you have which is basically totally an integrity issue, but saying you have all these finances, you have all of these things, that you have, but you really don't have. So then you're already starting the relationship in a space where finances could be part of that core. Okay. And so if that relationship continues to evolve, now you're married, you now have created a false expectation and false reality around how do we use finances. So even further in that is when you're thinking about before the marriage and you're talking about finances, I'd be curious as to what do you use with your finances? How do you invest? How do you tithe? What do you, is finances or money the center of all things? Because I think that's important for you to figure out that individual as you're going to that relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, or even couples that we've counseled or we've mentored with, or just you've even seen it on social media, people are very flashy with, I have this, I have that, or their biggest profile is like, I'm the CEO of this, I am the entrepreneur of this, I'm the this and this and this. And so it's centered around how you work and how you do your business, which is generally the core of that is your money or your revenue, right? And so it's just very interesting. I think this is a good topic, is how money tends to be a center of a lot of relationships and dynamics, and goes back to in relationships, as specifically in marriage. That's one of the number one reasons, there's a list of things, but that is a number one reason of mismanage of money or the feel about money that ends up causing conflict and strife and then divorce. Right. No one really talks about how you manage money. What's your common tendency of how do you manage money?
Right.
To me, in any relationship, you should want to know that. Well, how do you manage or how do you steward certain things?
Right. Yeah, that's true, because management is stewardship.
Yeah.
And for those who are Christians, who are live a Christ-centered lifestyle and are believers, obviously we are charged to be good stewards of what God has given us, whether that's our time, talent, and our treasure, and our gifts. And so one thing that I have learned over the years is money makes you more of who you really are. Okay. Money makes you more of who you really are. What that means is if I am a fool, when I am broke, if I am a fool, if I happen to come up on a whole lot of money, I'm going to end up being a rich fool. Money really exposes who you really are. Yeah. And if you don't have the ability to steward or manage that which is entrusted to you, it's going to expose you every time. You mentioned about how couples who start out in relationships in the beginning, they're going out to eat, they're spending, they're shopping, they're doing all this, whether that's the girl trying to woo the man or the man trying to woo the girl. When they finally get married, she or he is going to expect you to continue to do that same thing. And that's one of the tragedies of unmet expectations. Yeah. whenever you start out doing a certain thing, you already set that precedence, and that precedence is going to be expected once you get married to continue. And oftentimes, for whatever reason, loss of job, a tragic event, a health event, anything that could possibly happen to shift and cause a major change in your finances, and you no longer to maintain that certain level of accommodating lifestyle for those who are superficial, that could really cause a big problem in a relationship. And so that's why it's important to understanding who you are, how you are, and what you do with the finances that are in your care. And so,
and I think one of the things you said is that precedence creates this creates a rhythm of that. But I think that precedence also creates a level of pressure, and the precedence also creates a level of privilege. And so when I think about pressure, is whoever that has been in that space that has constantly been the one that is not managing the finances or trying to, I guess, win you over with money and treasures and trinkets, treasures and trinkets, right? Well, then it becomes a level of pressure to be able to keep up with that. Because life is gonna life, right? The other piece is not just, you said the precedence, but also the pressure, but the privilege.
yes.
And I think sometimes that's entitlement of like, well, we have always had this, so we should do this. And sometimes that privilege comes into that where finances, where you are not even really trying to manage your household or money manage your household. You've now created this lifestyle of this, and now you feel like you're privileged or you're entitled to be in this space.
Yes.
Right? And that ends up becoming another unsaid conflict, which we said about divorce.
Yep.
And so I think there's a scripture out there that talks about that, because we're talking about finances and money, but I know the word always has something to say about money.
Yeah, it does. The And, Couples Edition by The Skin Deep. The And is a card game with intimate and thought-provoking questions that help embrace vulnerability and deeper conversations for couples. Visit theskindeep.com to purchase your deck today. And because you tune into the podcast, you can receive 10% off your entire purchase just by using the promo code REALationships. That's right, the promo code REALationships. Visit theskindeep.com and tell them Lonnie and Kara sent you. This show is brought to you by The And, which is a really cool
I love that.
Organization, company that actually has great conversation starter cards. And Kara and I were turned on to this about, I think, around 2020 during COVID.
Around COVID, when
yes.
everybody was
and
locked
so,
in and had nothing to
and so,
do.
yeah, so we want to encourage you guys
Yeah,
to go to this website. We'll leave the information below. And I would definitely, in fact, I will highly recommend you grabbing a hold of this card set. It's a great conversation starter. And it really does allow you and your partner to get closer and learn things about each other that you never would have known.
Yeah, that's good. And I think also in that same, the And, which is a card collection of conversation starters, there's all different kinds. So we are basically shouting out the couples edition.
Yes, the couples edition.
But if you go to their website, you will see all different types of card
variations.
decks.
There's also a family edition, which we can actually do it together as a family,
which is awesome.
Yeah, so you definitely want to make sure you take advantage of that.
Check it out.
So we're talking about finances and money and stewardship, really.
Money
and
can
so,
be funny.
yes, that's true. And so I want to share a verse in the Bible that sometimes people have taken out of context. Some people tend to believe that money is the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil. Let me make myself very clear. Based on what the Bible says, money is not the root of all evil. It is the love of money that is the root of all evil. 1 Timothy 6, starting with verse 10, it says, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." Reading from the NIV. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. All right. Another translation, and in fact, I'll read it from the Amplified version, which sometimes the Amplified version gives a more emphatic expression of it. So it says, for the love of money, that is the greedy desire for it and the willingness to gain it unethically, is a root of all sorts of evil. And some, by longing for it, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves through and through with many sorrows. So it's not that money is the root of all evil. It is the love of money, which is the root of all evil. And unfortunately, for a lot of marriages, because of that love for money, it has actually overridden their love for one another.
That's good.
Therefore, a lot of divorces have occurred because of financial issues, because the love of the money has become the root cause of all evil.
Yeah. That's
Now, one thing that I can say with no shame whatsoever is I learned early in our marriage that I was not as good as handling finances as Kara was. And so, unfortunately, I learned it, but I had to learn it the hard way. We had to learn it the hard way because I had this mindset of I'm the man of the house. I should be the one. Okay. And that mindset did not last very long. I had to humble myself because I was actually digging us deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole that was very tough for us to get out of. We eventually got out of it by the grace of God, but I had to come to my senses, swallow my pride, humble myself, and realize that when it comes to handling finances, Kara did a much better job at it than I did.
I don't know. I think you shortchanged. You saw what I did there. I think you shortchanged yourself a little bit, mainly because I think you are really good when it comes to like short-term strategies with money. So, for example, if we're planning a trip or we're planning something that is like an event or an experience or something to that nature, I think you do really good with that. Okay. You're like, okay, we need to have this amount. We're going to do this. We're going to budget this amount. I'm not going to do this. And so I feel like you have a really good structure. When it comes to long-term type investments or long-term money management, I think I am better in that.
Okay.
So the long game. So I feel like whenever it is, for example, the reoccurring type debts that you have, whether that is your mortgage, your car payments, or whatever that, I think we are both blended in that space where I think we both do really well with that. But when it comes to long-term budget or planning or strategies, I think I'm better in that space, or I become better in that space. So I think it's important to have that balance, right? Where I wouldn't say you're horrible. Now, in the very beginning, you were horrible. You were like, you weren't even tracking anything. You were just spending stuff, and it was magnified, I think, more because we didn't have any.
Right.
So when you are like operating from like pennies and you're counting every little penny, when you're a mismanagement of finances, is a greater stress.
Yeah.
But those same habits can be just as detrimental when you have now more money. So like for us, we have more money because we've grown in our income or what have you than when we were 29 years ago.
Right.
But those same habits are now more damaging. So the small pennies of mismanaging as a young couple, that hurts because we didn't have nothing. But that same tactics of having those same small mismanagement and now you've got more money out of the pot, it could be more detrimental. Right? Which causes even more stress. So if you didn't know how to if you did not know well of being timely of like paying your rent or paying a small payment on whatever, now you've got a mortgage. So if you still have that same behaviors then, and now the costs are greater.
Yep.
It's like more devastating now. So I think it's so important that couples have those critical conversations about how you manage and don't get so hung up on the gender thing, like, well, you're the man of the house and you're supposed to
Right.
I mean, but at the end of the day, when it is a financial decision, you're gonna make the final call. Regardless if I'm bringing more money in or you're bringing what, it doesn't really matter. It's one household, right? But that brings up a topic, honestly, Bear, is
Pause. keep that thought. For those of you that don't know, I knew it was going to slip out eventually. My name is Lonnie. Lonnie Lee Barker Jr. That is my name, my government name.
Yeah.
People back at home in the geek call me Dee. My nieces and nephews call me Uncle Dee. My kids call me Daddy. Kara never calls me Lonnie unless she's talking to somebody else. But when she's talking to me, she calls me Bear. Continue.
It sounds funny when I say Lonnie. I think that's the funniest name, Lonnie.
Okay.
Anyway, but when I think about that, I think it is a challenge for that, and that goes back to the concept of, and people. I will say this, as Lonnie said, right, is we're not financial advisors. We're not financial planners. That's not our job. But we've learned out through trial and error of how to manage certain things. There's been a big conversation, and we hear from our couples that we mentor with, is like, well, all the finances need to be in one account, and everyone needs to have all access to that, and everyone needs to operate in that. We're not going to tell you to do that or not.
Yeah.
But I can tell you we don't really do that.
Right.
Reason why of that, we both have access to our accounts. So there's no secret accounts. We have full access. We can actually access it. We can withdraw from it. But how we've managed our structure of being good stewards is there's certain accounts that's going to funnel out the main bills. So it just is structured that way. That doesn't mean that, some people are like, well, you need to have one account and you're married, you have one. Well, that doesn't work in our household. I think if we did that because of our spending habits, we would mismanage. We'd be mismanaging some things. Right. Honestly. So I think that's important. That usually comes out is like, should you have one account? Should you have operating one? It just depends. Yeah. It really depends on how you've structured in your household. Is it right or wrong? We're not going to tell you that. But I think the piece that's wrong is if you have secret accounts, right? Nobody's aware of your accounts, and you're using that for your own personal gain, and nobody knows about it, right? I think that's wrong. The other thing I think it would be wrong is if the person doesn't have access to that account. So whether you have 5 accounts, 1 account, 3 accounts, 10 accounts, you're supposed to be, because you are one, you should have full access to whatever account. Now, you shouldn't be abusing the accounts. Like, oh, I'm about to start. No, but I think it's about being transparent and operating with integrity when you think about your finances. Yes,
that's true. And I think one of the main things that has been helpful is communication in finances as well. Now, I'm not into throwing people under the bus. However, if the bus was to come around this neighborhood, you would be under it at this moment.
Oh, wow.
For the simple fact that I'm sure once I start my bus throwing, you'll find some way to throw me under it too.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But communication is very important. Now, you don't have to communicate for every Shein item that comes. Hold on. Let me finish. You don't have to communicate every Shein item that's dropped off at the front door. Or every Amazon package.
Shein shade.
I'm just saying. Okay, all right. We'll shift the shade from Shein and move it over to Amazon. Because hold on. Let's see. That's what I'm saying. Whenever I start, I knew you was gonna try to jump on the bandwagon. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish my point. You don't have to communicate every single Amazon order, every single Shein order, or every single whatever order. At some point, it comes to be a necessity to discuss. Especially if you know some things are coming up. Hey, listen, I know we have this trip coming up. I know we have this event coming up. I know we have this coming up that's going to cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
Then it's important to communicate, hey, I need to do this or I need to do that, so that when that trip comes up, I'll give you a perfect example. When we went to South Africa, we went to South Africa this last trip. This last time we went to South Africa in October. Before us going to South Africa, when I tell you, it seemed like everything was happening. Like, meaning like, whether that's, I don't even know where to begin. Okay. Something where Kara happens to have something get broke on her car, like a rear view mirror.
Actually, a side mirror.
Okay. Well, it's just side mirror. Okay.
Yeah.
The side mirror gets broke on the car. I didn't ask questions because I'm like, at this point, woosah. That thing costs $2,500 to get replaced.
Unbelievable.
$2,500 to get replaced for the side view mirror. Here I am thinking, okay, well, that's $2,500 that we're not going to be able to spend when we get ready to go to South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get closer to the trip. Boom. Then, let's see, whose car was it?
Wasn't mine.
It was Maya's, I believe. No, it wasn't Maya's. It was my car. Remember when she came home and for some reason, I didn't even ask any questions. My rear tire rim, the wheel was cracked.
Yeah.
Literally cracked. The rim, not the tire busted. The rim was cracked. Then she drove home on it. Damaged. I mean, just like damaged the front and the rear tire. I didn't ask no questions.
After another. It's always
It got up to be about the total damages. Fortunately, we had insurance. I start, with the body shop, you can see a real time thing. It was like, it got up to like what?
Actually, that wasn't last year. That was the year before. But
No, it was last year. 2024.
Oh, I thought it was 23.
No.
Because you had another thing with your car too.
It was prior to us going to our trip. This is how I know.
Either way, yeah.
Anyway, it got up to a whole lot.
It was crazy.
So I'm thinking, okay, that's more money that we're not going to be able to have when we go to South Africa.
Yeah.
Then things came up where I think I had to get a crown done on my tooth.
It's just multiple
little
things.
things were happening. I'm talking, and the whole time I'm thinking, well, we're not gonna be able to spend a whole lot of money this time in South Africa. And then I start seeing Shein packages show up. Then I start seeing Amazon packages show up. I didn't say nothing. Here I am thinking in the back of my head, okay. All I know is there are certain things that I do know I want to purchase when we get to South Africa. In Cape Town, there's this go-to shop that I go to every year that I get custom suits made. And this time,
you were able to do multiple.
Hold on, let me finish. This time, I knew I was going to get a bonus because they messed up on one suit the year before. So I was going in there, thinking, okay, I know what I want to get, know what I'm going to get. But as soon as I go here and make this purchase, and somebody says, no, we can't pay that. We can't. I was waiting on you to tell me what we couldn't do. I was like, now, if you wouldn't have bought all them Sheins, then I would have been able to get it. But fortunately, that was a battle that we didn't have to fight. All right. But I said all that to say this. When things come up, it is so important to communicate with one another because if incidentals happen, and they will happen, if an incidental happened, and then I know I've been making all these purchases, whether that's for studio equipment, video equipment, or any of this, and not telling her about it. Yeah. Now, when we got to make this big purchase to take care of one of the kids' cars, the garage being broke.
Yeah, that was it. That was like, I knew there was something else.
Yes,
it was like multiple things.
Right, just multiple things happen. Just incidentals, life. Yeah. But if you don't communicate those little small things that you've been doing, your spouse is going to think, oh, we got it. We got the money. And then all of a sudden you realize you don't have it. Oh, that's
another stress. But I think here's the thing that's important, and it goes back to I say in the long term space. The long term space is, I think one of the things that I learned early on is you need to have some form of an emergency fund, something where you try not to. You can call it your stash, you can call it whatever it is, but you need to have an emergency fund for these incidental things that are so random, the random things that happen that you just you weren't expecting, whether it was our garage, our car, stuff with the house, stuff with the kids, medical things.
Or if the dog swallow a rock.
Or the dog, which is not even our dog.
It's our daughter's
dog. Swallowed. Oh my gosh, he swallowed a landscaping rock. Ended up being like over like almost $2,000, and he could have had it was like major things. And so those are those things where I would say why I feel like I'm good on the long term is that I always try to have money saved back for these incidental things, whether that is all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, real time moment. So last year, I was like, okay, I'm going to just make sure I put more money into this account. So whenever it draws out each month for our mortgage payment, I'll have a little bit of a cushion there. Because of that strategy last year, the difference is probably going to be like $65 more in a payment. Now, the option could be is pay it all up front. I could do that, right? But that impacts our short-term revenue, our funds. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just fold it into the payment. You may say, Car, that's a bad idea. But for my household, it works for us for our flow of our money. But I say that is fullback moment is you've got to have a savings. You've got to have an emergency, because if you don't have an emergency, when some emergency happens, that is a number one stress, because now you're stressed out because your regular bills are always going to come, but now you've got to pay for unexpected house note, unexpected house repair or something, unexpected car repair, unexpected thing where your kids are now involved in whatever, and like, I need this for books, I need this now for my apartment for the summer. All of those things are unexpected. That unexpected is called unforeseen stress.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that Car is so right about that. Whenever you have to forecast an unforeseen circumstance, some people call it a rainy day fund.
Whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you call it, whatever you label it, it's always wise to prepare for what possibly could happen. Possibly could happen. And I know with us, and one of the bad practices that I had in the earlier times in our marriage is people will come to me, whether that's friends or family members, will come to me asking for help, asking for a handout, and without even telling Kara, I would do it.
Don't do that.
Then I did it to the point where it ended up affecting our well-being, where our light bill was being affected. Our rent bill payment was being affected.
The yellow, red, pink notices. Everybody knows what those are.
It was bad stewardship. It was
Very
bad stewardship. Although my heart was in a good place to help somebody, the Bible says a man who cannot take care of his home is worse than an infidel. And I had to understand that, man, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of my house before I actually be a blessing outside to somebody else. Now, I'm not saying that being helpful is wrong, because it's in fact, God has blessed us to be a blessing to help people who really need it. But at the same time, when it becomes to be a not a help to us, but a burden to us to help other people, that's where I have to draw the line. And by God's grace, I'm at a place now where I have matured as a husband, as a father, as the head of my home. As I have matured to the place where I can say no, and people have to understand that no is a complete sentence.
That's right.
I don't have to tell you why I'm not going to help you.
Right.
I just can't help you.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
so that's just that, and that came with trial and error.
Maturity.
And I had to accept responsibility for my actions in that regard. And I think we're at a better place now. Of course, there are times where Kara and I will both agree, hey, let's help this person, let's help this family, let's help this cause.
That's the key thing. We both agree.
Yes. Whenever there's agreement, then it flows well. And so I think communication, understanding that money is a vehicle.
Yeah.
The love of money is the root of all evil. Money is not evil. It is the love of it that becomes the root of all evil.
Yeah, it's almost like as you think about money as a consumption, but being consumed by money.
Yes.
It's the same premise is your consumption of your spending and how you're flowing of your money, but also are you consumed more with your money and your income more than you are being concentrating and your focus on your relationship.
That's exactly.
And I think that's the key thing is that we are blessed to be able to have talents and skills that's able to revenue and generate money. I think that's a blessing. But when we become so consumed with the money where we're just now out of alignment, or we're operating with not integrity, or we're operating being stingy, or we're operating being selfish, then that becomes a bigger issue, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I think too is as we kind of think about holistically here, we talk about spending, we talk about being with integrity and money management and all that. You talked a little bit about scripture is tithing. I know that has been, if we could tackle that, because that was one thing that couples talk about, or I don't want to tithe, they want to tithe, I feel like they're over tithing, all of that. What's your perspective on that?
Okay, I'm gonna share a little bit of perspective on this, but I'm not gonna share from a advice perspective.
Yeah,
because people are gonna do what they're gonna do. They've already made up in their mind whether they're gonna follow this principle or not. This is not a principle to say, hey, you're wrong if you don't do it, you're right if you do it. I'm not gonna even tackle it from that perspective. I'm gonna tackle it from a experiential perspective where I have seen from my own experience. And that's the way I'll approach that. Now, of course, let me say first and foremost, I believe in it. I believe in giving a tenth of not just your money, but a tenth of your time, your talent, and your treasure. The Bible says, give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give unto your bosom. But there's also places in the Bible where, for example, I believe, I can't remember which apostle it was, but they said, silver and gold I none. I don't have silver and gold, but such as I do have, that's what I will give to you. There are going to be times where you don't have money to give. However, what you do have, you can give of that as a sacrifice or as an offering to God. And so the concept of tithing has been very controversial. But when it comes to tithing in marriage, it has to be, like we talked about earlier, it has to be an agreed upon thing, something that you both agree on. Speaking from my own personal experience, I believe in giving the first fruits of all of my increase, because the Bible says he will bless it. God will bless it. And so I believe in giving a 10th part of my income because it all belongs to him anyway. The reason I'm able to generate revenue because of my gifts, my talents, and the things that God has blessed me with is because God gave it to me. And so therefore, I think it's only right to give God a portion of the tithe or a portion of the increase. And I've seen God bless me tremendously beyond measure, not even in the form of finances. The blessing of God is not always in the form of money or material things. God can bless you in the form of favor with mankind, favor with others. God can bless you with peace that surpasses understanding, with health, with wisdom, with harmony in marriage, with security and safety in your household, with your children and your children's children. And so a lot of times people associate blessings from God to money or material things, but God is so much bigger than that. And so I believe it's a blessing to tithe, to be able to bring all the tithes into the storehouse, so that that's, of course, as the Bible says in Malachi, that there may be meat in my house. And God says, test me in this. Test me in this. It's one of the few things. In fact, I almost want to say it's the only thing where God says, test me in this and see if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there will not be room enough to receive it. And so I believe in the concept of tithing. Now, people believe in the concept of investing. A lot of people invest in their 401k, which is unstable also. A lot of people believe in investing in the stock market, the S&P 500 or whatever, Bitcoin, whatever. People believe in investing.
Time.
Yes, they believe in investments. But when it comes to the principle of tithing in the church, then that's when they have a problem. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But I believe in the concept of tithing. I've seen how God has come through over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I don't do it to get from God. I do it because I love God and because I want to let God know how much I appreciate all he has done for me. And if God never does anything else for us as a family, I tell you, we have seen firsthand the blessing of God on our life, in our marriage, not even through just finances or material things, but just through the concept of peace, security, harmony, health, and just overall bliss in our marriage. And so let's go ahead and get ready to wrap this thing up. For those of you who really believe that your marriage can be better, we really want to encourage you, because there's always hope. I believe in the mindset of, if you're not dead, God is not done.
That's good.
If you're not dead, God is not done. And we fight for marriages. We've seen God do miraculous things in not only our marriage, but in other people's marriages. And so we love to stay connected with you. You're more than welcome to inbox us, DM us, email us. We have our contact information below. We would love to connect with you to help encourage you in your walk. If you are married, if you're not married, you are a couple and you're thinking about marriage, hey, we love to share with you some things that we've learned through marriage and some roadblocks we've run into that you don't have to run into, because we'll be happy to tell you, hey, consider this, and hopefully it'll help you. But for the most part, we believe in marriage.
Yeah, we do.
We believe that marriage is honorable, and God honors marriage, and God blesses marriage. And we don't want you to feel like you're in this thing alone. And so we would encourage you all to contact us, and we would love to see what we can do, whether that's through prayer, through encouragement, or just through mentorship. Until then, peace.
Yeah.